Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, hello. It is 1 o'clock Eastern Time, and we start promptly. This is Jack Molisani. We're going to be talking today about resume secrets that might surprise you. This is the first in an ongoing career makeover webinar series. Let's get started. My name is Jack Molisani. I am the president of ProSpring Technical Staffing, and staffing agency that specializes in content professionals. My Twitter handle is @Jack Molisani if you want to tweet during this presentation. I also produce the LavaCon conference on content strategy. It's going to be in Portland this coming October, 11 months away and counting. I'm also the author of Be the Captain of Your Career, a new approach to career planning and advancement, which hit number 5 on Amazon's career and resume bestseller list when it first came out. A lot of what I'm going to be talking about today is in the book, so if you want more information, that's a good place to get it. This webinar will take about half hour, and I'll leave plenty of time for questions. So if you have a question as we go, put it in the chat box, and I will try to answer questions as we go, or definitely at the end. Some ground rules and warnings. These are just my opinions, observations I've made over years of recruiting. What's true for one person may not be true for another, or what works in one situation may not work in another. For example, a bank could be very conservative, but a creative advertising agency would be creative and avant-garde. So whatever you do today, try it for yourself. If it works, keep it. If it doesn't, throw it out the window. Finally, I've heard it said that some cultures believe that to attempt perfection is to anger the gods. So artists in those cultures purposely leave a little imperfection in any art they create. So if you find any typos in here today, just not angering the gods. All right, let's go. Okay, in this session, I'm going to cover some cold, brutal secrets about resumes, interviewing, and job hunting, and how to use them to your advantage. Today's session is more about resumes. Next week is more about job hunting, but this is a good foundation. And then we are going to go on from there. So let's just start with what is a resume. I'm a firm believer in defining terms, and the most easiest way to screw something up is to not understand the terms. So let's start there. All right, Cambridge Dictionary says a resume is a written statement of your education and work experience used especially when you're trying to get a new job. Wiktionary.com says a resume is an account of one's employment history and qualifications, often for presentation to a potential future employer. I say both those definitions are wrong. A resume is not a summary of your skills and professional experience. It's not a capabilities overview, your life story condensed into a few pages, or as Brian McCaleb in Orange County, California says, it is not your tombstone. So, if a resume is not a summary of what you have done, and it's not a summary of what you can do, then what is a resume? I say a resume is a vehicle that shows whether or not you match what the reader is looking for, or for what the reader is looking for, you grammarians. And I'll say that again, because if you take away nothing from this presentation, take away this. A resume is just a vehicle that shows that you match what the reader is looking for. And that's all it is. Let's look at this. This may be a controversial definition, but is it a good definition? Well, how can you tell if a definition is good? If you get more interviews as a result of using it, it's a good definition. Yay, keep it. If you get fewer interviews as a result of using it, it's not a good definition. Discard it or change it. Consider this. There are only 2 situations where someone would be reading your resume. You sent it to them, solicited or unsolicited, or they found it somewhere in a resume database, on your website, on your LinkedIn profile. It doesn't matter. You may have sent your resume to someone in response to a particular job posting. You may have sent your resume to a company at which you'd like to work with no particular job in mind at the time. You may even posted your resume in hundreds of resume databases in the hopes that someone somewhere would find you. However, why you sent your resume doesn't matter. What does matter? What matters is why someone is reading it. Okay, say that again. Why you sent someone your resume doesn't matter. What matters is why is someone reading it. Well, why would someone be reading your resume? to see whether or not you match what they're looking for. Ding, 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 ding. So my definition holds true. So here's resume secret number one. Why you sent your resume to someone doesn't matter. What matters is why they're reading it. And why are they reading it? To see whether or not you match what they're looking for. All right, let's press on. Now, what they're looking for may vary. It could be industry experience. Networking people want people with a networking background. Biotech wants somebody with a biology background. If it's a contract, they may just want you to have FrameMaker or RoboHelp, get in, get out, get done. They may be looking for someone with a PhD in microbiology. It could be something totally different. You may not know exactly what they're looking for, but you do know that whoever's reading your resume is doing so to see if you have what they need. So part of your job as a job hunter is to find out what they're looking for and show that you match. Now, how do you do that? Let's stop here for a second. How do you do that? Easiest way is to find somebody who's currently working in that company, maybe through LinkedIn, and say, hey, I see that there's an opening in your department. Can you tell me what your manager is important to them? And I'll give you an example. Lance Glein, an ex-president of the Society for Technical Communication, used to work at a company in California called Delta Dental. And he knew that this particular manager at the time loved documentation by the pound. The bigger the manual, the better it must be. So he told a friend who then, this is fast forward to the interview, but it still illustrates my point. When she came to the interview, she brought in a red wagon full of big manuals, dropped them on the conference room table with a resounding thud, and got the job. Why? Because she found out what the reader was looking for, right? So when you can't always do it, especially if you're applying for a job and it's hidden behind a firewall and says, send your resume to jobs@blackholenevertobeheardfromagain.com. But when you can, try to find out what the reader's looking for. What's wrong with the following definition? A resume is a short account of one's career and qualifications prepared typically by an applicant for a position. It doesn't take into account that the reader is looking for something and is judging whether or not you have it. So let's combine Webster's definition with my definition, and you get a resume is a short account of one's career and qualifications prepared typically by an applicant for a position that shows how the applicant matches what the reader is looking for. That's a workable definition. All right. So if you know resume is a vehicle that shows how you match what the reader is looking for, you can then take proactive steps to help the reader find what they're looking for and thus increase the number of interviews you receive. Resume secret number 2. The most commonly held beliefs about resumes are incomplete and do not focus on what you can do to increase your chances at receiving an interview. All right. So in this webinar, I'm trying to give you tools that will help you be proactive in your job search. I don't want any job hunting victims out there. Let's take control of your job hunting and your career, and this is one way to do it. Let's look at some more secrets. Resume secret number 3. No one will ever read your resume. We may scan it, read parts of it, search for keywords in it, but no one is going to read your resume from beginning to end and weep at the sheer beauty and insight of your writing, your creative spelling, and your mastery of the English language. We just don't have the time. With the exception, I think, of public utilities, because they're required by law to read every single word of your resume, but they're the exception, not the rule. Number 4, you will never be hired based on your resume. You'll be rejected based on your resume, weeded out based on your resume, even mocked and scorned based on your resume. And believe me, we mock and scorn, right? And if you do get an interview, it won't be because someone liked your resume. It'll be because you weren't rejected yet. So if you've never been a hiring manager, this is how it works. You get a stack of resumes, either online or printed, and you go through them and you go, no, nope, maybe, nope, nope, maybe. Okay, let's bring in these 2. No one ever says, oh my gosh, look at this resume. We must hire this individual immediately. It doesn't work that way. So you'll be rejected based on your resume. And if you do get an interview, it's not because they like your resume. It's because you weren't rejected yet. Now, I'm calling this 4.1 because it's not a separate secret, but it's kind of a corollary. The longer your resume, the greater the chances that you'll be rejected. So if you're going to err on the side of brevity. Save the details for the interview. Per Resume Secret 4, people will use your resume to reject you, so give them as little ammunition as possible. Number 5, and I got this from Bonnie Graham at Scantron in San Diego, you are writing for short attention span theater. This takes Resume Secret number 3 to a whole new level. Not only will people not read your entire resume, they probably won't even read entire paragraphs or a list with more than 3 items, or. I'm telling you, you are writing for short attention span. Short. Now, you can have everything a company is looking for and still not get an interview. Why? Resume Secrets 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. An example, a company called us once who needed a tech writer in Houston with patent application writing experience. We found someone, submitted them, and 5 minutes later the hiring manager says, he doesn't have patent writing experience. I'm going, yeah, he does. The problem is the manager just didn't read that far. The experience was in like the second page, second paragraph, second bullet. And she just didn't read that far. Now, the sad thing is, he had a summary, and it said, experience writing user manuals, policies, and procedures, etc. What should he have done? He should have said, summary, experience writing patent applications, user manuals, etc. Remember, it's your job to help the reader find what they're looking for. So if it's on page 2, they may never read short attention span theater. Put it at the top. All right. Number 7, recruiters automatically assume you are not qualified for the job for which you are applying. We get tens, if not hundreds of resumes a week, most of whom are not qualified. They do what I call this shotgun approach to recruiting, or the spaghetti approach, where you just throw some spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks. So statistically, we just know the chances of you being qualified for the job are 1 in 100. So we're not going to read a 5-page resume to see if you match, right? So again, it's your job to help us find what the reader's looking for. Now, this is not on a slide, but I'll just share it here. Typically, people are looking for one of 5 things. 1, what are you? Are you a ditch digger? Are you a tech writer? What are you? 2, do you have experience in my industry? Construction, biotech, networking, etc. 3, do you have the tools that we use? Now, if it's a full-time staff position, they'll probably train you. But if it's a 2-week contract or a 4-week contract, they want you to already know what tools they're using. 4, do you have a degree? Because some companies require you to have a degree. And 5, can they afford you? And typically, number 5 is the only thing not covered in a resume. All right. So again, help people find what they're looking for. That's your job. So this is yet another reason why the very first page of your resume must show you have what the reader is looking for. So to continue the example I just gave you, if on those 5 things, I'm looking for a technical writer with experience in nuclear regulatory, with a degree in an applicable field, who can do structured authoring. And if the only thing your resume said is technical writer with 10 plus years doing policies and procedures in the nuclear regulatory field in a structured authoring environment, or an award-winning tech writer with a degree in nuclear physics doing the blah, 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 I would go, great. That's exactly what I'm looking for. I don't even have to read the rest of your resume. I still will. But that's not why. That's why you should put it at the top of your resume. Don't make me go looking for that kind of information. All right. So if we don't find what we're looking for in the first page, it basically confirms our assumption that you are not qualified, and we just stop reading. Number 8, the smallest typo or formatting error can scuttle your chances of getting an interview. I used to say engineers can get away with typos in the resumes, but technical writers cannot, but I don't believe that's true anymore. An engineering manager once told me about a programmer with typos in her resume. He said, and I quote, if she can't write 2 pages of error-free resume, how can I expect her to write 10,000 lines of error-free code? And I'd say that is doubly true for tech writers. Now, I'm just going to share with you the most common mistake I see in technical writer resumes, and I bet half of you on this webinar have this error. And it's a mix of end dashes and hyphens in your date ranges. So if we look at this resume, okay, starts off going space, end dash, space. Okay, and then, oops, then there's a hyphen. and somewhere along in the way he does hyphens without spaces, it's just inconsistent. So don't do that. According to the Chicago Manual Style, the most correct punctuation for a date range is an end dash with no spaces on either side. All right, since we're looking at bad resumes and things to not do, here's another example. So this is someone who I think had, 10 years experience in tech writing. Look at this resume. I mean, one, there's no white space. And then what happened to the bullets here? They're not even matching these bullets. And then, all right, so I'm going to turn on hidden characters. Oh, and look how he indents the date ranges. Space, 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 space. Yeah, don't do that. And then here's another example. Again, technical writer. Turn on hidden characters. Tab, 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 tab. Tap, 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 space, 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 space. Makes me wonder, how could you be a tech writer with 20 years experience and not how to set a tab stop in Word? All right, so if I had two candidates for the same job, and this was the only candidate I had, I might submit him and say, hey, there's some problems with his resume. But let's look at this top thing real quick. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 lines of text. No one is going to read all that. If you really feel you must put all that information, maybe put some headings or break it out into smaller bulleted lists. But again, shortage attention span theater. All right. So don't do typos. All right. And that takes us to, now that we summarize what not to do, let's summarize what to do. 1, find out what the hiring manager is looking for when possible and include that information in your resume. Make sure the information in your resume is easy to find. Be brief but clear. You are writing for short attention span theater. And then don't give people ammunition with which to reject you. Make sure what you did appears early in your resume and have 0 defects. Now, one of the things that I offered the community as a whole is I'm more than willing to look at your resume, and I will spot things in it that you may not. So if anyone is currently looking and want me to review your resume or have it on file for positions, go ahead and send it to my email address. And here I'm going to pause for a moment to see if anybody has any questions they want to put in the chat window. All right. So next week we are going to look at some more things that will help you in your job search. It's going to be called the top 10 mistakes professionals make when looking for work. It's going to continue what we started here. And if anybody has any questions between now and then, again, you are more than welcome to reach out to me, jack@prospringstaffing.com, or call me, and we will go from there. This webinar is being recorded, and we will email out the link to the recording as soon as it finishes with post-processing. I hope you guys have a great day wherever you might be, and I'll see you next week.